Loose lips sink ships. Welcome to Simplified Sparky Marketing. I am back in the studio, which is fucking wonderful for some audio fidelity. There's been some sketchy audio in the last few podcasts, which I apologize for, but 80% done is better than none. And it's something I stress the whole time. Too many people think too much into things and they just don't get shit done. I made do with what I had to record the podcast and get it out there. And that's the most important thing to me. So what I want to speak about this week is giving your clients too much information that it turns them away from the job. And where this idea stemmed from is literally two things that happened to me in the last few days. The best one of them is I was booking my flights out to Australia again, and I spoke about reward flights and flying business class. And unfortunately, there's a downside of flying business class, and that is if you don't book it well in advance, you don't get the seats. And unfortunately, I let the ball drop and I didn't book in advance, and there was no reward seats flying back. And I was not spending $7,000 on a flight because I will buy a watch with that $7,000. Thank you very much. So what had happened was my wife had pinpointed flights back. I'm not too sure what the airline it was with, but a very similar flight popped up when I was searching for the flights, and I had to fly from Cork back to Sydney. So I had to go Cork, London, and this time it was with Malaysia Airways to Kuala Lumpur and Kuala Lumpur to Sydney. And when I was booking this, I didn't think twice about it. I didn't give a shit. I just said, they're all going to be the same shit. So I'm going to book that one. And it was basically the same price as the other ones. But the other one was with Cathay Pacific, I believe, that my wife had spotted. So she asked me if I'd booked the flights. I said yes. And I goes, it wasn't actually the flight you sent me. It was with someone else. Then I said, it's with Malaysia Airways. She goes, why'd you book with Malaysia Airways? They're shit. They've had a few planes go down. And I was like, thank you for that. I had completely forgotten about those situations. Now I'm going to board that flight for 14 hours for one flight and 7 in the other, thinking this plane may go down. And I was like, that was a situation where I didn't need to know that. Statistically, they've gone pretty well since those planes have gone down. And if anything, as my brother-in-law said to me, they're going to have even better planes now because it would have fixed those problems. And I had to laugh at it. I've been like, you shouldn't have fucking told me that. Like, psychologically, I'm going to be thinking about that in the flight now. So I was fine. I jumped on the plane and I've arrived in one piece, which is the main thing. Mind you, there was a baby screaming in front of me for, I shit you not, 4 hours of the flight. And I really, it humbled me to really appreciate business class because, yeah, it was just a different animal going back there again. But these are the joys of it. There's pros and cons, and a pro of the business having particularly the American Express reward card as well, is you get priority pass into any lounge in any airport. Well, the majority of lounges in airports respectively. And each lounge I went into London, had a free breakfast in there, had a few coffees, too early for beers. I went to Kuala Lumpur, went in there, had a feed, had some coffee in there as well. And yeah, you can dock into all the lounges, which is complimentary. And that's where the cost of the card gets recouped. So if you pay for the card, and if you've traveled with your partner, they get a pass in there as well. I'm not too sure about kids, but I'm pretty sure they can jump in as well, permitting, so you can feed your family in there. So if you think about, you go to an airport, you drop a couple of $100 or whatnot on food and stuff. This is where having a credit card, you just reap the rewards. And something I stress is like, use the business to leverage this kind of stuff for your lifestyle. I digress. That was just a side note about flying that because it was a funny story about Malaysia Airways. So that was one thing. I got too much information about that flight and she shouldn't have said anything. Secondly, I just had to jumpstart my van because it was parked up for 6 weeks, and I think the GPS tracker drains the battery. And there is a gentleman that lives next door to me, and he blocked me in with his ice cream van strategically, and he just parks there anyway, but he blocked me in behind him. So I had to go and get his keys from his partner and move his van. And when I did so, I jumped in. I don't even know what model it is. It's a beastly big van. It's an ice cream van. Went in, turned the key, and I reckon he changed the battery in it because the floor was lifted up and the battery was exposed in the passenger footwell. So as I looked down, I turned the key and it sparked, and there was a little puff of smoke came out of the battery. And I was like, oh, fuck, what's happened here? But I thought it blew a fuse. And then I looked down and he must have not tightened the terminal or something because it just fell off and it was quite loose. I had a look at it, grabbed the spanner, put it back on, and I tightened it up. And sure as shit, it just started straight away then. But another thing where I could have given him too much information, I'm not even going to tell him that story. He's not in Sydney at the moment, but I could have turned to him and said, I went to start your van and all I seen was a big puff of smoke coming off the battery, and I eventually moved the van or whatever. If I was in his situation, I would be thinking, fuck, that van might go on fire because he said there was a puff of smoke. There's no need for me to tell him that information, because if I tell him that information, psychologically that's going to sit with him and it's going to disrupt his thoughts and make him paranoid. That is a pure situation where you do not have to tell the client something or anybody something if they don't need to know. So another situation with this is let's drag this into the electrical world of things, because this is obviously for electricians, this podcast, and we want to have some comparisons of where you actually give away too much information. So recently I've had a switchboard upgrade quoted, and I initially quoted the job as a load center upgrade or just the switchboard itself in an existing home. And I said to them as well, they wanted to do some more further works down the track. So I said, look, what you're actually better off doing is relocating the switchboard to the other side of, take it away from the front door, relocating it to the side of the house. Here's an option for single phase and three phase. And I said, however, doing the works now, I would highly recommend that regardless, one of these options is picked, because as I stated to my members as well, the reason we say this is because if I said to them and gave them the benefit of the doubt that they go, oh, look, don't worry about it. Look, we won't do the load center now. We'll actually just do it when we're doing the relocation. And then what's going to happen is they get complacent, they get relaxed, and 2-3 years passes and they've done fuck all with the switchboard out the front as well. It's remained as it was. Now, with this, what's happened is they've chosen the load center, but had I have not stressed that, 9 out of 10 people would say, oh, but look, sure, we're going to relocate anyway in a year or two. But it's like, will they actually relocate is the next thing. And I think it's my duty then as an electrician, and your duty, this is where we use checklists and stuff inside our job management software, is to add a little reminder and a checklist that it could even be 2 years time to check in on that job and see if they haven't relocated it, to check in again. And then that way, 2 years time, they've got more money. They may be edging even closer to getting that electric vehicle, to getting the induction cooktop, to getting more aircon units, that they're like, yeah, fucking hell, we actually were thinking about this. Let's go do it now. So there's a double-edged sword there of planting a reminder and also get something in the bag. Because imagine if you just lost the switchboard. That's, could be 1,500, could be $2,000, whatever you charge for a switchboard upgrade or a switchboard load center upgrade. So I would have lost that, but I stated the importance of it and why she required RCDs, and she's going ahead with it. Another situation like this would be, I did a job recently and I'm just thinking that's a perfect job as an example of they may not have gone ahead as well with too much information. So I had to do it was a standalone oven install. So it was a beastly oven. It required a 25 amp supply. So what I did was I ran a 6mm cable it was actually a lovely run. It worked out really well. And I plotted out, I knew it would work, that I had to lift some corrugated sheets in the roof. I had to lift up maybe 2 or 3 sheets, a lot. I didn't pull them out, but I actually had to pull one out. But that was quite a paranoid client, and I knew they were particular, so I didn't mention a fucking word about lifting sheets in the roof. I knew I was going to do it. I knew I was confident that I was going to lift them and put them back into place. And I was like, this client does not need to know that I'm lifting sheets, because that might totally prevent the job. She might turn around and say, actually, look, I don't want to lift the sheets because we've had roof problems over the years, and I don't want to do that. So look, we won't even bother with the oven now. So you really have to keep your cards close to your chest, because tell them what they need to know, but you don't have to actually tell them your fucking life story. And even in regards to personal stuff, I knew a guy as well that he had an apprentice start with him, and the apprentice wasn't the best in school. He's been in a lot of trouble. And what I just said to you, my mate used to reiterate that to the client. It's like, the client doesn't need to know the apprentice used to be a bit of riffraff. You know what I mean? It's like they don't need to know that information, because then they might start getting paranoid about what the rest of your employees are like, or can I trust this person in my house? That's a personal situation of giving too much information away. So that's why I started the podcast with loose lips sink ships. It's true. The sinking ship is going to be your profit at the end of the day. So You need to keep it zipped where necessary and really stop and think before you fucking go too far with a description. Like, you just need to let them know that they want to do something and you can do that thing. And if you've got to bust the wall open, but you're confident that wall will go back together 100%, don't tell them. Just put the wall back together 100%. And then you can just tell them you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. One of the key things here is to sell the destination, not the journey. My flight to Australia, I clocked it in at 32 hours door to door. I left at 4 a.m. out of Cork on Wednesday morning in Irish time. And I arrived in at 8 p.m. on Thursday night, which equated to 32 hours. If I were going on holiday and you were a friend trying to get me over, you would not, like, it's the same thing would be you saying like, oh, fuck, you're going to have to drive firstly to this airport, check your bags in, jump across on that flight for an hour and a half. Then you're going to get out, fuck around the airport for 3 hours, jump on the next flight, which is 12 to 14 hours, I can't remember. Then you get out there, you walk around a bit. Then you get on another flight for 7 hours. I don't want to hear that shit, or your friend doesn't want to hear that shit. What they want to hear is once you arrive, the weather is going to be 27 to 30 degrees. We're going to be hitting the beach for a month. We're going to be going out having a great time. We're going to be drinking beers, sightseeing, all of that. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to fucking hear about the flight. And that's just another situation of giving too much information where you don't need to give it. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you can put that in the back burner and stop yourself running your mouth the next time that you're trying to sell something or get a job over the line. All the links you need to improve your marketing today are underneath in the description. Oil up your pliers. I'll talk to you glorious cunts next week.